operative word in that sentence you asked me was and. Learning intentions without success criteria are hopeless. Success criteria without having learning intentions is not as bad, not very good. One of the things that I like Shirley Clarke from England's work in this area particularly is how you can construct those success criteria in terms of what students are supposed to learn, not what they're supposed to do. And one of the mistakes I see is so often you have a learning intention about what we're doing today. It's just not interesting. It's not about the task. Like, I go back to the examples I was using before. The best way of showing students what success criteria is to show them what an A looks like before they start. Show them what a B looks like. Show them what the end of the product looks like. Now, a lot of teachers I work with struggle with that because they think that what success looks like is what you achieve when you get to the end. And obviously in our time-constrained world, the end means the end of a series of lessons. And we don't value efficiency. What would happen if the kids learned it earlier? Well, that's a bit of a problem for us in many ways. We have to adjust that time frame. I went to a school this morning and I saw the second part of what I wanted to say on this, is I saw the students putting up success criteria before they started. They were doing this science work and they were starting with what would success look like. Now, they struggled to know what that was. They needed a lot of help. That's why the teacher's there. But teaching the kids up front what it looks like when they get there. How do I know when they get there? Like, I go back to my sports analogy. If I said to you, I'm going to teach you what Australian rules football looks like, but I'm not going to tell you what the rules are and I'm not going to tell you how to score, but I want you to go out there and play it. For many of you, you'd give up very quickly, particularly in a game like Australian rules. It just looks random. Unfortunately, for a lot of kids in our school, that's what learning looks like. So all I have to do is wait and I'll either be guided or I'll be told off. What I want to do up front is show them what that success looks like. Like, I go back to the example before. I'm a kid, I'm struggling in maths. Please give me the answer and then I'll worry about the strategy. Show me what that success looks like. Now, I want both. I want them to get the right answer, but sometimes I have to show them successful learning in this way, and now I want you to concentrate and use your efficiency in terms of the strategies. Now, the other part of that is that if you, teacher, before you start, have a clear understanding of what success looks like, you're more likely to get rid of the stuff that doesn't matter. You're more likely to acknowledge and understand what it looks like. And you are, and here's the critical one, you're more likely to tell the kids up front. Like when I went back before and talked about what a visible learning school looks like, it's when kids know what success looks like before they start. Like, a lot of kids will give up, or they'll do what they have to do until the bell goes. That is not what you call lifelong learning. That's not what I think our schools are about. For some students, they will do what you ask them to do, regardless of whether it's the beginning or the end. Great. But what about those other kids? It's only if it's showing up near the front. Now, the front doesn't mean the very first day. Sometimes on the first day you want to understand what the kids know and don't know before you decide what success looks like. Like, as Graham Nuttall, he spent years of his life putting microphones on kids every morning of the year. Every afternoon he went home and listened to them. And one of his findings, 60% of what's taught in every lesson the kids know already. So it's a very important phase at the beginning to understand what kids don't know. But very soon after that, I just don't think there is any excuse for not exposing to the students what success looks like in this lesson. You might want to then argue that it's cheating, that they get to know. Is it really such a problem that they learn what the end of the task looks like up the front? Now, what you're going to have to do as a teacher is you're going to have to be more creative about thinking different ways for understanding whether the kids truly have got it or if they're parroting. And that requires a different set of teaching strategies, but those are the strategies I want you to have. I just don't think there's any argument about why it should be a secret. Why should we be the people in the room that will dob you on the head and say, now you've got it? If you're going to believe that kids should be self-motivated, should be into self-regulation, and should be in all this lovely language we like to use, if you're going to self-monitor, if you're going to self-assess, if you're going to self-talk, if you're going to worry about the whole self-evaluation, you better have a target to do that to.
Learning goals and success criteria are critical pieces of information students need to be successful learners. Students and teachers must hold a common understanding of what is to be learned and what successful achievement looks like. With explicit goals and criteria, students have the beginnings of what they need to become independent, self-monitoring learners. Learning goals are brief statements that describe for students what they should know and be able to do by the end of a period of instruction. The Ontario curriculum identifies the knowledge and skills that students are expected to acquire. When teachers transform expectations into learning goals, students are empowered to be more active participants in the learning. Like the specific expectations, learning goals represent a subset of the knowledge and skills students must master to successfully achieve the overall expectations. What makes a learning goal effective? Here are some things to consider.
We started with the overall expectations and the specific expectations for this particular unit, dealing with simplifying polynomial and rational expressions. We first of all have to look at what is the knowledge and skills that the students need and how we're going to get to that point.
Overall expectations first.
Okay, so the overall expectation is this one: manipulate numerical and polynomial expressions and solve first-degree equations.
No.
Okay, but we're not doing first-degree equations, so just manipulate numerical and polynomial expressions.
The specific expectation says add and subtract polynomials with up to 2 variables using a variety of tools.
Having identified the knowledge and skills to be addressed, teachers consider the scope of the specific expectations. Sometimes, even specific expectations need to be broken down into smaller increments so that learning is appropriately scaffolded.
So we're simplifying, then we have to add or subtract to simplify. So
Yeah.
before they can simplify, they have to,
Group-like terms.
but then
Yeah.
they can't group if they don't know like and unlike terms.
We have to teach them what a polynomial expression is.
Okay.
We need to identify what is a term.
So basically, those steps then would be our learning goals for this lesson, which is to ultimately manipulate these expressions, and that's how we're going to get there.
Unpacking the overall and specific expectations can result in a progression of incremental learning goals, which build students' knowledge and skills so that they can achieve the expectations. When knowledge and skills are broken out and scaffolded into individual elements, students and teachers are able to assess more accurately what they are doing well and where they should be focusing their efforts to improve.
So by focusing in on one specific criteria or one specific learning goal, it allows me to pinpoint where the student's strengths and weaknesses are. From there, we can do quick little checks, whether it's circulating through the class or whether it's a quick little exit card on the way out to see, yes, I meet that learning goal, or no, I don't. Well, again, looking at our learning goals from this unit, we've been working on for the last few days things such as adding and subtracting polynomials, multiplying polynomials.
It's critical that students and teacher share a common understanding of the learning goal. When developing the goals, pay careful attention to the language.
When we're writing our learning goals, we want to make sure that it's going to be in a language that the students are going to understand. Often many in the mathematics expectations, they're very complicated and are sometimes written in language that the students don't or aren't able to grasp. So we often will rewrite the expectations in a simpler language for the students. In this particular case, the simplifying, do they know what it means to simplify polynomials? That simplifying is a key word because it's a key descriptor that they will find when handling these types of questions or problems. Hopefully when we're finished, they will be able to tell me what that means in their own language.
So Nat, now that we've got the learning goals up there, are they meaningful to the students? Are they in the right language? Do you think they're going to know what they mean?
Well, so we've used words like identify. They know that.
Yeah.
They like and unlike terms, probably not, but that's part of what we're teaching them today. So I guess that's okay. They'll
Yeah.
probably ask us questions. That's a good thing. Grouping, they know how to group. And I think it's really important to keep the word simplify in there because that is a critical word.
Pay particular attention to the verb. It needs to be something specific and observable. Abstract verbs like understand or appreciate make it difficult for students to have a clear target of what they are striving to achieve.
It must be phrased from the student's perspective.
I agree. That's why I have up on my board, by the end of class, I will be able to do something, or I will know, or I will explain, I will identify, to make it personal for them.
Some specific expectations do meet the criteria for learning goals and could be shared with little or no alteration. Here's a specific expectation from Grade 7 Science and Technology, Understanding Matter and Energy. Identify the components of a solution. The statement identifies the knowledge the student is to demonstrate. The verb is specific, and the student will be able to determine whether the goal has been met. The learning is clearly defined in language appropriate for most intermediate students. Note that the subject-specific vocabulary, which is part of the learning for students, is maintained. The statement is brief and concise, and when it is shared with students, the teacher will rephrase this from a student perspective as, I am learning to identify the components of a solution. Finally, the statement identifies an incremental step in a progression of learning. Here are some learning goals which identify additional knowledge and skills to build student understanding.
It's an integral part of my lessons every day. Not just to have the learning goals, but to discuss them with the students before we begin, so I can identify which students grasp what we're talking about that day and which students need that further explanation so that they're going to be on track for that day's lesson.